Hello and welcome to SimonTheBig's Flying Guide. So this is going to be a multi-episode tutorial where I'll go through all the beginner things you should know, such as how to buy the pilot, basic controls, etc. all the way to Ace tier, where you'll learn manoeuvres and some secret things that I do when I fly. But for now, let's look at the beginner level things. Alright. So you should have enough saved for a pilot, which the baseline cost is 200k, I believe. Yep, 200k. So now you've got three options. You've got level 0, 12 or 15. Now with each level, as you probably should know because you played the game a while, their salary is slightly different. So I guess this would probably be the best to buy first, but seeing as it costs that much and seeing as you're new to flying or a beginner, we're going to go with this one. So I recommend you buy this one first. If you buy it with credits or gold, it's up to you, doesn't matter. Whichever faction, you can get whichever faction you want, it doesn't really make a difference with this level of flying. So now you've got your brand new pilot. You shouldn't have a wrench yet, as well as any of these higher tier planes, only the recon. So hop into a match and I'll meet you there. Alright, so this video is going to talk about classic controls. So we've got our recon plane selected. You want to spawn wherever you can. And so now, by default, you should your screen should look like this. So if I go to the right, we'll do that. A bit of a roll. Go to the left. Go left. Do that. Try and get out of this guy's way. So these are mouse controls. That's not what we're going to be learning. We're going to be learning classic. So, if we come to here, see how it says plane control mode. We want to change that to classic. So now, just get rid of this guy. So now, try again. We're in classic control. So if I press A, I go left. D, I'll go right. S by default is throttle down. I have my own custom controls which I'll share with you. W is throttle up. And then we've also got something called the debug controls. So what the debug controls are basically, if I press the debug button, which for me is shift, and then press A, you'll see I roll. So whereas before, if I let go of my debug button, which is shift, and now press A, I go left. So if I hold shift and press D, I should roll right. Yep. And like before as well, debug for W and S is also different. So if I go S, I'll pull up, W, pull down. You can also invert these controls. So see how I press W, I go down. You can change it to W's up if you want, but that's up to you. Again, that's in settings, just over here. Oh no, that's the mouse. It's one of these. So when you're flying, there's two options. You can fly in third person, like I am now, or first person. Personally, I choose to fly in first person, but in this plane, I can barely see what's going on. So, if I just spin around for a second, if you go into your settings, import plane zoom camera, instead of having cockpit, change that to nose cone. So you see how all that rubbish is gone? We're not in the cockpit, right at the nose. So this is a lot better, in my opinion. And in a future video, when we look at bombing, the nose cone will be very important for that. So I think it's best to fly first person. And yeah, just practice a little bit. So the next thing I'll show you is my custom controls that I have. So my plane accelerate and brake is my mouse wheel. If you have a mouse which has side buttons, you can make your side buttons accelerate and brake. It's up to you. Personally, I prefer the mouse wheel. I find it's a lot quicker to shift my throttle than just clicking, click, 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 but it's up to you really. The other thing I have, so these are all stock. My orbit camera, I believe by stock it's shift. I've changed that to alt. So when I press alt, you can see around the plane. So I think it's a bit easier for my thumb to press this button because you're going to be holding it quite frequently rather than your pinky or whatever the default is. For plane primary fire and secondary fire, in your recon plane, you'll see here it says main gun. You only have one. So you only need to worry about mouse 1 for this. So if I click mouse 1, I shoot. 1 bullet is a click, hold is whatever. Mouse 2, there's nothing because there's no secondary gun on this plane. There is a rear gun, which we'll get to in a moment. So the next thing is plane auto level. Don't worry about that, you will never use that. But basically, like now, if I press the plane auto level button, my plane will straighten out, which is not really important. So here we have the debug button or alternative controls button. So mine is shift. Like I said before, I just find it easier to press. So the other thing, this by default will be blank. Why? I have no idea. So what that means is when I am holding shift to do my roll or move around, that sort of stuff, I can't change my acceleration because I'm in debug mode. So you might remember before, when I hold shift and press A, I roll. If I let go, I just move left. Okay, so if you don't have keys bound to that, you won't be able to change your acceleration when you're doing stuff like this. So that's kind of important. So make sure you've done that. If you want, you can change, I believe it's here, invert. There's some invert button if you want to invert your settings. So S is you pull down like now instead of W, but that's up to you. So now, perfect example to show you the rear gun. If you press C, oh, it's dead. If you press C by default, you go into the rear. Only thing, I can only shoot if I'm in first person. You can see my plane's falling down. That's because there's no one driving it, so the engine's been cut off. And you'll die. So make sure when you do that, you're on a flat angle, that way your plane glides, and the enemy is really close to you or they're just about to die. But in these higher tier planes here, except this heavy, they don't have a rear gun, so you don't really need to worry about that too much for now. So there you have it, you made it to the end of the first video. You're now a beginner pilot. So in the next video, we're going to look at bombing across all tiers, and we'll also look at throttle control and see how that affects us when we bomb and when we perform certain maneuvers.